Here is the definition of uniform continuity and a theorem giving us a sequential criterion for a function failing to be uniformly continuous. We've previously introduced these things, links in the description. Today we're going to get some practice with these concepts by showing that x cubed is continuous on the reals, but then using that sequential criterion to show that it isn't uniformly continuous. But then we'll see that it is in fact uniformly continuous if we only consider a bounded subset of the reals. We have previously proven that x cubed is continuous on the reals, but let's look through this proof just a little bit because some of the things that we see in this proof are going to be used in the uniform continuity proofs. Of course, the crux of a continuity proof comes down to the distance between f of x and f of c, which in this case is x cubed minus c cubed. So we start by factoring this as a difference of cubes. That allows us to take out the absolute value of x minus c, which we know can be made arbitrarily small by selecting an appropriate delta. Notice in this proof, the choice for delta is the minimum of these two quantities, the minimum of 1 and the multiplicative inverse of this expression multiplied by epsilon. Remember, c here is the arbitrary point at which we are showing continuity. For a uniformly continuous function, we wouldn't need delta to depend on the point in question. Of course, this proof does because, like we'll show, x cubed isn't uniformly continuous. Throughout the algebra in this continuity proof, we're trying to write everything in terms of absolute value of x minus c and that number c itself. This is because the absolute value of x minus c can be made as small as we need it to be, since it's less than delta, and however many absolute values of c appear here, we can account for that in our definition of delta. So we do this clever addition of 0, apply the triangle inequality, do some basic algebra and rewriting. Now, in order to replace the absolute value of x minus c with a definite number, that's the purpose of 1 here in this set. We want to be able to say, well, the absolute value of x minus c is less than delta, and we know that delta is no more than 1. So the absolute value of x minus c can be replaced with 1. That makes the expression bigger. Same thing here. Absolute value of x minus c gets replaced with 1. In the end, we get delta multiplied by this expression, and so that's why we see this expression's multiplicative inverse in our set, and then of course we hit that with an epsilon. So we replace this with this, which makes the expression bigger, things cancel out, and in the end we show the distance between f of x and f of c is less than epsilon. So x cubed is continuous at this arbitrary point c, thus x cubed is continuous on all real numbers. Now here you can see in just a couple lines we're able to show that x cubed is not uniformly continuous on the reals, again using this sequential criterion for failing to be uniformly continuous. We need to find two sequences, xn and yn, in the domain that get arbitrarily close to each other, but where their images maintain some distance from each other. The images don't get arbitrarily close. So to that end, we consider xn equals n and yn equals n plus 1 over n. Clearly, as n gets arbitrarily large, 1 over n gets arbitrarily small, and so these sequences will approach each other. Their distance will approach 0. To show x cubed isn't uniformly continuous, we need to show all of this for some epsilon naught. For our proof, we're going to take epsilon naught equal to 3. Here, we're just showing that indeed the terms of the sequences we've defined get arbitrarily close to each other. And then, of course, we have to look at the distance between the images of the terms of that sequence, f of xn minus f of yn. By definition of the sequences and the function f, this is n cubed minus, and then here is the expansion of n plus 1 over n cubed. If you cube n plus 1 over n, you get n cubed plus 3n squared times 1 over n plus 3n times 1 over n squared plus 1 over n cubed. Of course, this simplifies quite nicely. N cubed minus n cubed, that cancels out. 3n squared times 1 over n, that's just 3n, but of course it's getting hit with a negative. 3n times 1 over n squared, that's 3 over n, which also gets hit by a negative. And then finally minus 1 over n cubed at the end. Since all of these numbers have the same sign and they're in absolute value bars, we can just drop the bars and make everything positive, and so this is equal to 3n plus 3 over n plus 1 over n cubed. N is at least 1, so we know that this is at least 3. And remember, this is the distance between images of the terms of our sequences. So we've shown, even though xn and yn get arbitrarily close to each other, their images are always further than 3 apart. They certainly don't get arbitrarily close. Hence, x cubed is not uniformly continuous, and so it was no surprise that in the continuity proof, delta depended on the point at which we were showing continuity, c. And now the twist, of course, we can show that x cubed is uniformly continuous on a bounded subset of the real numbers. That's what we'll do here. And just looking at the proof, you can see that it looks fairly similar to the original continuity proof. Here is our definition of delta. We will, of course, go through the details. You can see again we have a 1 there, and then epsilon times the multiplicative inverse of some ugly expression. In the continuity proof, we needed this expression to account for whatever that point C happened to be at which we were showing continuity. But here, because the domain is just a bounded subset of the reals, we're able to just account for the worst case scenario instead of an arbitrary point. So going through the details, we're going to say our domain S is bounded below by A and bounded above by B. We'll of course take epsilon greater than 0. We'll see where this delta comes from. We're going to take two arbitrary points from our domain X and Y with the absolute value of X minus Y less than delta. Then, of course, we begin by looking at the distance between the images of x and y. That's the absolute value of x cubed minus y cubed. And so we begin by factoring this difference of cubes. Thus, we take out an absolute value of x minus y, which we promptly replace with the bigger number, delta. Now, when we go from here to here, we also apply the triangle inequality, rewriting the absolute value of a sum as the sum of absolute values, which could only make the expression bigger. Then we do the clever adding 0 trick here. We rewrite x squared as x minus y plus y squared. We then apply the triangle inequality to that to write it as the absolute value of x minus y plus the absolute value of y squared. When we square this binomial, of course, we get the first term squared. That's the absolute value of x minus y squared. We get the second term squared. That's the absolute value of y squared, which we can add to this one at the end for a total of 2 absolute value of y's squared. And then we get 2 times the product of the terms. So 2 times absolute value of x minus y times the absolute value of y. Now we'd like to be able to replace the absolute value of x minus y with some definite number. So that's why we say let's have delta be the minimum of 1, and then we'll see what comes next. But let's at least put 1 there as an upper bound. So we can replace the absolute value of x minus y squared with 1 squared, which is 1. Now here we have the absolute value of x minus y, and we want to consider the worst case scenario. We know what that is because we know that x and y come from S, which is a bounded subset of the reals. In particular, it's bounded above by B and bounded below by A. Well, if we suppose A is over here, the lower bound of the subset S, and B is over here, that upper bound, the furthest apart x and y could be is certainly b minus a, which we know is a positive number because b is greater than a. So we could replace the absolute value of x minus y with this upper bound of b minus a. However, it will actually play nicer with the other terms if we do something different. This is just to avoid having too much of a mess at the end of this. We see in this expression there's also the absolute value of y, and then we have the absolute value of y times the absolute value of x. Now, what's an upper bound on the absolute value of x and the absolute value of y? Well, we're not totally sure. We know that they both come from this bounded subset S. However, we can't be sure which of these bounds, the lower or the upper, actually has a greater absolute value. To account for that fact, in order to be able to replace something like the absolute value of y with a single definite upper bound, we'll take the absolute value of a and add it to the absolute value of b. We don't know which one has a greater absolute value, so let's just add them together. Guaranteed that's an upper bound on the absolute value of any number from this bounded subset S. And it's certainly an upper bound on the absolute value of x minus y as well, since the absolute value of x minus y can't be greater than b minus a. So we replace the absolute value of y with the absolute value of a plus the absolute value of b, and we replace the absolute value of x minus y with that as well. It's an unnecessarily large upper bound. However, it allows us to just rewrite this product as abs a plus abs b squared. Same thing happening over here. The absolute value of y times the absolute value of x. We know that each of those is certainly less than abs val a plus abs val b, so we replace both of them with that, which is why we see that sum squared. And same thing here, abs val y, we replace with this bigger number, abs val a plus abs val b, which, like abs val y, is being squared. So now you can see all of these terms are just numbers of abs a plus abs b squared. In total, there's 2, 3, 4, 5 copies of abs val a plus abs val b squared. All right, so we have delta times this, and this is the point of the proof where we realize we need to put the multiplicative inverse of this expression times epsilon in this set for delta, and that's what we see here. So to finish this off, we know that delta is less than this because of how we defined it. These things cancel out, and we're left with epsilon. So indeed, if x cubed is only defined on a bounded subset of the reals instead of the entire real number line, then for any epsilon greater than 0, it is the case that as long as 2 points from the domain are sufficiently close, then their images will be arbitrarily close as well. So that's a little bit of practice with uniform continuity and this criterion that we've introduced for a function failing to be uniformly continuous using sequences from the domain. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and be sure to check out my real analysis course and real analysis exercises playlists in the description for more. And remember, if you're not already, you can join Wrath of Math as a member at the premium tier to access the lecture notes used in my courses.